What's up everybody, NFX here with another tutorial. In this tutorial I'm going to talk about mixing your drums. And what I have here on the screen is a pattern, a drum pattern, that's actually part of one of my songs on SoundClick. If you're interested in hearing it, you can go to SoundClick and find the song called Simple Life and listen to it, and that's where this pattern is from. I'm going to take a listen to this pattern, and just so you can hear what they all the drums sound like together. Okay, and then I'm going to explain a couple of things that are important when mixing drums. The first important thing is that your drums are on separate channels. Now you could layer your drums, and you saw an example of layering not drums but other instruments in the club tutorial, and I may actually do a drum layering tutorial shortly. But what you want to do is, if we go look at the bass drum here, we can see that it's going to FX1, which is the mixer channel number 1. And because we have two bass drums in this song, we have this one and we have this one. So we have like a long boom and kind of a flabby sounding second drum that work together. Both of these are actually going to the same channel because I want my kicks to be routed to one channel because I want to give them the same effects. I could, if in some cases I would actually send the the boom, this drum, to like its own channel so that I could tweak it so that it, maybe I want to give it a lot more bottom end or do something with it to to differentiate it from the other kick more, and that's fine. But in this case, both of these bass drums are going to one channel. I have a tambourine part here that's going to FX4. I have this other part, which I'm not sure what sound it is, but it sounds like this, maybe like a snap. But I'm going to send that to the same channel as the tambourine part, channel 4. I've got a couple of snare drums. Those are going to channel 3. And then I've got a hi-hat, and that's going to channel 2. Okay, so all my sounds you can see are routed to the mixer. So let's bring up the mixer and get this out of the way. And in the mixer, we can see I have channel 1 is kicks, channel 2 is hats, channel 3 is snare, channel 4 is perc, which are my other percussive instruments. I've color-coded this particular song. I normally wouldn't do this, and I tried to get in the habit of color coding it, but it's just not my style right now, so don't expect to see this type of thing in my other projects. But what I've done is, in my kick channel here, I've applied some compressor just to this kick. If I solo this channel and play it, you'll hear just the kick drum. Okay, and then there's a compressor. Now I'm going to turn the compressor off, and actually I'm going to tell you real quickly what a compressor is, in case you don't know. What a compressor does is it takes a sound, and if the sound is louder than a certain threshold, it compresses that sound. Picture a mountaintop, and on the tops of the mountain there's snow, okay? But halfway up the mountain and at the halfway point of the mountain and below there's no snow. And let's say that the snow line is our threshold. If we were to compress it, everything above the snow line would get squashed down by a certain amount. And that's all set in the compressor settings. Now I don't want to go into a full compressor tutorial here. But what happens is that mountain, those peaks with the snow on them, are all going to be squashed down to some level that's lower than what they currently are. And that's what a compressor does. So it kind of flattens out the peaks in a sound. And in this case, I'm going to show you how the sound is made louder very easily by a compressor. If you look right here, you're going to see the peak. This is the peak meter here, and it's going to show you the maximum peak of this sound. And you can see it's right there, okay? So it's approximately, I don't know, at the top of these knobs here, roughly. Okay, now I'm going to turn on the compressor. Now the sound just got a lot louder, but if you notice, this line really didn't move up that much. And the reason is because now that the sound is compressed, it's got a lot more energy squashed into it, so it can make this louder noise without me turning it up. Because if I was to just turn up the sound, like this, for example, what that would do is that would allow all this extra low-end energy to get transferred into my mix, and that's not always a good thing, because if you have too much of that energy, it could take away from other instruments. So I'm going to try to get it about to where I had it before. It's approximately here, I think. Okay, so anyway, so that shows you how a compressor makes it louder, but it doesn't necessarily make it use more of the energy that you would have to use if you were just to raise the volume of it. And my next channel is my hat channel, and I've really only done one minor thing to the hat channel, and that's just to boost up the high-end frequency. There's a built-in equalizer in FL Studio, but I could just as well add an EQ channel. If I reset this thing, I can say select and then throw in there a parametric EQ if I wanted, for example, and then just kind of boost up these high-end frequencies here. And that would make the hats brighter. Now you don't always have to put EQ on your instruments, on your drums or on instruments. What you want to do is listen and see if you think they need it. In this case, this is with a little bit of extra high end. That's without it. So in this case, I think it sounds better with a little more sparkle on the high end. So I'm going to leave that in there. Here's a snare channel. On the snare channel, I also have a compressor, and I'm not going to talk about that again, but I want to show you something you can do with your snares to help make them snappy. Now in this case, I like the snare sound the way it is, but I'm going to show you a trick you can do to help you find your snare's sweet spot. What you can do is bring up a parametric EQ and then increase some frequency. In this case, you can see I've increased this. Now I want to make this a tighter peak, so I'm going to control that here, make that like this. And when I play this this sound, I'm going to then sweep this frequency across the dial. Okay. Now in this case, I don't like the sound anywhere because I like the original snare. So in this case, I would not do that. But what that will allow you to do is sometimes you want a clap or a snare that really hits with some force and is very bright sounding. You can do this trick. You can just, make this frequency peak, sweep it across the frequencies, and find where the sweet spot is. Once you've dialed in on the sweet spot, bring it down, because you don't want it overdone, but you might want to just accentuate that particular part of it. Hopefully I can show you that better in the future, because this snare sound doesn't lend itself to that. But what I will show you here is something I like to do with actually all my percussive instruments that aren't part of a low register. Like the kick is in a low register, the snare isn't. The snare's kind of in the middle, and the hats are kind of on the high end. But what I like to do is roll off the frequencies on the low end, and you can see I've dropped this down, and now my graph here shows you how these low frequencies are just being rolled off into nothingness, and the roll off is controlled, and I can roll it off, more or less. And what I'll do is I'll listen to the sound, and then I'll sweep this frequency. You can hear it's quite dramatic like this, but between here and here there's not a lot of difference. It started sounding a little bit thin, and so I backed off. But what this is going to do is it's going to keep the low end space clear, because even though you might not hear the frequencies down here, in the mix everything's being thrown together, and if I can prevent energy that I want the kick drum to have and the bass to have by doing this, I'm going to do it. I'm going to just remove any chance that low frequencies can escape into the mix that I don't want down there. With the hat, I forgot to do that, but instead of doing it here in the parametric EQ, my shortcut is to do it here and just to do that. Real simple. Just take that one fader on the built-in EQ and swap it down. And then you could also do the same thing where you could sweep it using this knob to find how far you can go without affecting the sound. So there, I've rolled off some frequencies there. Finally, let's go look at the Perc channel, and I don't really have any effects going on in the Perc channel, but I could boost some mid or do something here if I wanted to, but I'm not going to. You don't always have to be tweaking stuff. A lot of times we learn a new trick, we go in and we just start trying to apply it to everything, and that's not always a good thing, although you do learn a lot, I guess, doing that sometimes. Another thing I want you to notice is how I have the Perc going out to the drum channel. So in other words, what I'm doing is I'm taking the output of this channel and routing it into this channel called drums with all these little dashes. I'm doing the same for snare, doing the same for hats, and the same for kick. Now the reason why I do that, if I take all these faders down, okay, for the kick, hat, snare, and the percussion, I'm going to take the solo off, I'm going to play, and I'm going to show you, this is usually how I start doing a mix. I usually start with the snare, get it hitting to a point about in the middle, but it's just a starting point. Then I'll add in the kick, then some hats, and then my other percussion. Okay, and that's a good way to start. I usually start with the snare. That's my preference. If there's a vocal in the song, I usually start with the vocal, because that's generally the most important part of the song. So I'll start with that. But right now, let's just talk about the drums. So there, I've set all my levels how I like them, and then they're all routed to this drum channel. And what that allows me to do is control the overall volume of all the drums together. And when I have the fader for the drums all the way down, you'll hear a little bit of these sounds peeking through. Those are actually because I've put those to a send channel, and I forgot to talk about that. Go to the snare, and what other instrument? The hats. Looks like the snare and the hats are going to a send channel. The way I know that is by this knob here. In this case, for knob number 2, that's send 2, it's all the way off. But you can see this one has a little bit of send, a little bit of audio going to send 1. That's the snare channel. And the hat has quite a bit more going to send 1. What a send channel gives you is the ability to apply an effect to several of your other mixer channels at the same time. For example, you might have a delay effect that you want, the same exact delay effect that you want to apply to a bunch of instruments. You could put the delay effect in a send, and then what the send will do is it'll give you the effect of the delay for whatever gets sent to it. In this case, the reverb. That's why we heard a little bit of reverb coming through. If I turn the drums down and hit play, you notice this channel shows some activity. And on this channel I have an ambience reverb. This is it says it's a demo version. This is one of those freeware, you know, they ask you to buy. It's definitely a good reverb. I've stopped using it since I made this song, but it's a good reverb. Anyway, so I have, you can see that the sound's coming in through here, and then it's what you're basically hearing is the reverb part of the sound only. There's no dry sound. It's strictly the reverb. I could mix in some of the original, but I'm not going to. I just want what's called the wet sound. In other words, the sound of the effect of the sound minus the original sound. So that's what you're hearing coming through in this reverb channel, and I could turn that off, and there's my drums without the reverb. And that, again, this is a very subtle effect, so you don't hear a dramatic difference in it necessarily, but you know, sometimes you don't want that dramatic effect either. Anyway, so there's a quick explanation of how to use a send, in this case a reverb send. But I have them all to the drums, and what this allows me to do now is I can play the song without the drums if I wanted to. And there you have it, how to mix your drums. Hopefully you've learned something from this tutorial. If not, and you know someone who might benefit, send them my way. If you have any comments or suggestions, please send them to me at nfxbeats@gmail.com. And in the meantime, have fun with music. That's what it's about. If you stop having fun, you're going to lose the soul and energy to do it. So take a break if that's what it takes. And in the meantime, I'll see you later.